Welcome back. Okay, so where was I? I wrote over here because I wanted a little smiley face in Terran Basin. I wrote Terran Basin and then drew some features just to remind myself. Okay. Let's get that out of there. That's not that this image is really something that I'll me bragging a little bit. A little bit. I like this one. Okay. Enough of it. Enough of that. So we were last time. Before I go to the hexagon thing, I wanted to talk about Terran Basin, which I was talking about here in the last recording. And how it's like a negative, positive nodes within this like figure eight, and how it has a sort of Shaligram structure here. But I was kind of looking like, you know what? Like, even though there's a Shaligram structure here, there's a Shaligram structure here too, right out to there. That kind of goes missing here because of stuff going on here, but it actually goes out to there. It looks like. Wait, and then it kind of goes. It's really not visible that well over here. But it looks like it's visible here, from here down this way. And then also like a lobe to it. I don't... Because it has that kind of feature in Shaligrams too. Even like with material in that one, maybe. I noticed also this one's got a good one for like how the current physically flows into like an opening here and then along the flow lines. But I was kind of looking around like maybe there's one over this way too. If there's any features this way, they're really, really not detectable because certainly there's a current that cut across this way that caused swept down here to produce the Mariana Trench. So anything in its path this way relating to this figure eight structure, the bigger one, may be pretty long gone in terms of like detectability and very subtle, and maybe we can see it if we like realize it to be there and like look for specific paths where like remains of it still are, like here, let's say, not there, but like let's just say, and like and oh, there it is, because we know it's there. There it is, kind of thing. But I don't see it. Yeah, but I thought that was interesting. Like that, it looks like it has another, even more extended segment of a Shaligram. And it's a smiley face. It's literally a smiley face. Big ol' mouth here. Big ol' mouth. Hello, everyone. Eyeballs, nostrils, mouth. And I've come across smiley faces, like here, that kind of looks smiley facey. Other places that I cannot, off the top of my head, remember. I think there are more so interesting. There's kind of one. Like they appear in places in like a somewhat legitimate kind of way where it's like is that a thing? Where maybe it's like a current process that is like common. Like this one's even got like a tongue out on the side too. Like one of the side tongues out. Like how cool is this world? How cool is this world? Okay, so now that I saw it, we can definitely see the Shaligram more distinctly, and this lake makes much more sense in its shape. Because like over here, there's kind of like a Shaligram feature here. And this lake is kind of reminiscent of that kind of thing. Let's look around at Shaligrams a bit. How can I do this? We could just click through a bit. Okay, like here. So we'll just look at this half and ignore this half for now. If not the whole process. Because... Wait, what did I just... Oh. Oh my god. Poor computer. Here we go, that might be... Isn't so cool. Make sure I'm not over top it. Okay. Just looking for features that are more reminiscent. Because they're not the same. They're very dependent on circumstances, what exactly the shape is. Here we go. That right there looks a lot like how that is shaped. And even, check it out, the ridges here. Ridges. Maybe there. But at least that. Maybe even again over here, but that seems a little much. I'm noticing though, this kind of looks like the center point of a sort of hexagonal region here. Maybe right here. That just got real like blown up, so it's lower elevation than the surroundings in a way, underneath the currents. Okay, let's go back here. So this one, I would say, yeah, let's go ahead and just go like this. Whatever. Okay. One. Did I messed up. I should have at least got that in there. Maybe I should make this more like that, although I don't know. Okay, maybe there. Okay, here we go. Here we go. This time I can trim out some of the other stuff. Pardon me, front view. Front view. Okay, so that's only half of the Shaligram. Let's keep going. Let's see if there's any others. So that's the side view of the top view of this. Wonder if there's something of this nature over here. This side just doesn't seem to have quite maintained the features because of cross currents. Where over here it seems more like it actually is still there. Dendrite type things. We could see right there just the currents carving those teeth there. Very much like this. This lake, I'm not sure why the lake would be like the region that's most like depressed and reduced in elevation. But it seems to be. Also, this little thing kind of reminiscent of that, like how that tends to be around the center region. Maybe even the Caspian Lake with this and with like up here. Although that seemed to just be clouds after all. I was like, is that just clouds? I don't know if this region, let's look over here. Let's go back here. So for sure it goes to this one. Does it possibly go into Europe like I'm looking at? There's the, that sea. Caspian Sea? Black Sea. Caspian. So the Caspian one looks like the whole of the this. Maybe goes down there then? I don't know. It just has the features enough where it's looking related. And this, it's definitely a Shaligram feature still. Even looks like there's kind of like a Shaligram thing here, maybe that's like connected to this one. So there's not just like one Shaligram, there's a chain of these things. Although this one's like sideways, like a Shaligram does. Like, let's keep looking at Shaligrams a little bit. Also that. That's seeing kind of like maybe the feature like this, but like it not at the quite the elevation. A bar. This is a pendant. Nothing that's like, also this probably is common. So we see that dendrite energetic like attachment of, I don't know why it's going on here exactly, but we see dendrites a lot. I've talked about it a lot in terms of the Earth itself, and like how energy propagates and bonds are forming and things. And maybe I'm not completely like correct about every detail, but the general concepts. Interesting. This one had a lot of energy going through it, I guess, because of the way it's like dendrited on the side, like the top of the Earth. Which has these currents that wrap around the Earth from it, from the top. We see the nice, smooth particle at the center of this. Out of the storm comes this stable system that actually snapped in half, I guess. It's not that stable, but maybe it just cooled, and when it cooled, it snapped in half. Sent energy. Like, that's what's going on, is a system that was here that was larger stripped away materials until it like spread out to a larger radius, or like the ones that are elongated. Yeah, it's whatever. At least that's what I'm thinking. And then like the elongated portion just kind of stretched out like into like lobes that then just were shot off as like needle kind of projections that then ran into the materials, where like, cause essentially what's causing this is a current flowing kind of like in a figure eight, like over here. And so it opens up a space, but then beyond that space, when it like shoots energetic emissions through that space, it runs into the walls of that space and shapes the walls of that space. Here it flows along the walls and smoothly shapes them, but over here it's just like sending debris, shock waves of energy that just like into the rock. Here's a good example of how there's like a sideways one. Kind of, this one's interesting because it's right here, and then the chakras are right here. So it's almost like there's a current that's cutting this way, generally speaking, interacting maybe with a current generally going this way, and in so doing, the two currents create both one this place and a smaller one here. A large one here that's like a positive, and then a small one over here that's like a negative, with like multiple electrons, something of that nature. Like straight up right there, and then it crosses over. Like, it's not actually at the location where this goes to exactly down the middle too, because that would be like here, but it follows the curvatures of the rock into this point from like across here. Maybe even this one is depicting like across here, so that there's a current going that way and a current going generally actually across the into here generally, to make the like the vortex point where crossing currents occurs right there and right there and right there. I'm like, am I even able to see what I'm talking about? Because I might be covering it with my face. More features that are kind of just, I see kind of that kind of thing. booty. Peach. There's some more of that kind of structure. Let's see if, and then also the elongated center, I think. I'm not sure what's going on in there. It's hard to tell. That one's totally missing the particle that formed there. That's just a window in to this opening. This one's missing. It's the particle there because it's all over here. It's all like splattered out. Kaboom! Nova, 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 nova. Shedding its skins until it's just nova'd out. Really nothing that's specifically resonating with this yet. A couple, but just interesting in general to go through these again. I'm only on 26. I have like 80 of these that I took pictures of because they're so cool. Like, we can for sure see, maybe what happened here is like whatever the way this material is like a portion of it is just more porous, more void of material, so it essentially caused the earth itself to like flow down the materials above it to just kind of flow into the pores and like depress into the land here in a way where we see a lake in a shape like this, reminiscent of a shape like that. That one was a little funky looking, not quite as like pristine as some of them look. I guess there's a chakra like in there. Chakras. Let's see. This one's real interesting because it's got a real clear particle still here, and then the actual body of this system is one with it is one with this body of this chakra. So like they can this rock cannot be a fossil. It cannot be. This one disproves the entirety of everything that we claim to know. In and of itself, this rock right here. Because this particle and this system of chakras energetically makes sense to be connected to this energetically, but it doesn't make sense for two living creatures to merge into one cohesive unit upon being buried and locked in some like shell. It doesn't really make sense. Let's see. That's the top view of it, just with this protrusion. Interesting there. I'm not sure what's going on. Maybe it was blowing its top. That would be crazy. I've never seen any of them with these features. That also has the top section with that like terminal. Two leveled. So cool. So cool. Let's see. Now that we like this current cutting across here, it kind of makes sense for if it goes across, like I was saying with the other one, and then where it like meets the next section, it branches. So there's a current that comes in this way, and then because it's like entering the next system, it deflects at an angle which goes through the center point where there's another current cutting across to then create a second chakra system. Although, if there's a current here and there's a current here, it would only make sense maybe if there was something up here in instances. Maybe not in this case, it has to be, but like maybe we can look for those kinds of things. Like, oh, look at those chakras there, and then like maybe that suggests there's another one at this location, and actually be able to like see it happening. That would be cool. Here's another one that where the current going around these chakras that was carving along the opening, carved at specific points, especially at this exactly long point here. Just kind of reminiscent of this thing. Maybe that's related to something like there, rather than this system. Like of that nature. That would be cool. Like even having regions like this where there's nothing going on there kind of looks like it's everywhere else pretty much. La la la, so just more crazy, cool things. Nothing that's really like that, especially. Can we see the top of that one? Must be here. There it is. I was just wondering if there's anything interesting. Like that kind of reminds me of the top of the ones that have the nodes. There's one that's elongating and having it break into like lobes that then can like become like needles maybe and just shoot off at some point. This one's longer. Like we can see there's a ball here, but it actually got turned more into like a elongated thing. Maybe just like part of it remained. So there's a ball there, but like part of the previous system is still there too. Just looks like a cave. Probably energy going this way. Okay, let's move on there. There's one there. This is interesting how it did this. That's kind of right there, again with that shape. This one, this Shaligram is out of this world. Like what? This one. Every time I see it, I'm like, I never noticed this. It's got a little, like, boop, right there. Just looks like a hand. And we've been finding hands, like, wonder if there's like a commonality of that kind of feature tied to a certain kind of energy flows. Then, cool. Oh my god. So this one's got it with that kind of feature, but indentation. So maybe it could be something more like that, where it's like actually not up to the flat with the surface, but it has a support structure. Oh my god, this one. This is not a fossil. This is a imbalance. This one's very representative of kind of what's going on here, though. If we go back to this, where we saw the single interior one, and then a larger one, and then a larger one still, and maybe even a larger one that's kind of becomes just part of the like everything else. It's just no longer it's no longer overwhelming the features so that it makes it look like it anymore, but it still is subtly has it with just a larger Shaligram feature right here, and then just kind of missing up here. But these parts, I believe, are energetically tied to the propagation of these Shaligram features this way, in some manner, just by looking at it like this. Like if there's a current coming across here, it doesn't really make sense for this feature to happen all that much, unless maybe like if there's also currents going like this kind of thing that are involved. Maybe this way. Probably more this way. I mean, they're literally, honestly, now that I think about it, they're literally going like this from here, around here, and around. Kind of like this. So maybe even the whole Atlantic is one of these right here. Right here. No, I don't know. That would be crazy, but I'm like, oh. It is possible. Did you notice this Shaligram right here? It's possible. Just over and over and over and over, where like the inner one pushes out, and I guess they just keep pushing out. Like the pressure just manages to bubble out, because this is still malleable and molten, like a molten material that this is happening in, relatively speaking. It's not like totally just cold and solid and a rock. Like it's still being shaped. So when the earth was being shaped, when it was expanding, it probably had the capacity to kind of form these like novas, like kind of out this way, but like imbalancedly, because there's a certain pressures in the system that kind of tended to in that direction. Maybe because the earth was expanding on the other side, I don't know, to like make it open evenly, so it opened on one side in this way and on the other side by it physically expanding, like by the Pacific Ocean being formed, pretty much. This rock is so, like, what? Sometimes I look at these and just like, I don't understand it. Like, what is this? In some ways, like, I mean, kind of looks like reminiscent of the stacking of the chakras and the wide chakras. So maybe it's like a layer of chakras, pretty much, that are flattened enough to be layered, but stable enough to be like a long structure, but formed enough to have like carved sections out around it. But like, it's still just guessing, kind of. This, like, what? Just naturally formed in the rock. Oh my god. So cool. And you can even see like little extensions between the layers over here, like trying to make it from eddies of sorts. Whew. This one looks informative. Like this is almost what's happening. Like we're living up here, la la la. Like birds are chirping up here. Down here, there's just this current flowing, reshaping down here and like pushing out, push up, or like causing collapse above in certain segments. That one's cool. That one's cool. There's another with that kind of feature. Let's just quickly finish these. This one's very reminiscent of a lot of them, where it's just smooth and just like two and just perfectly at the edge. Like this reminds me a lot of this region where there's this Shaligram here. I mean, it's open and it's more like there's another kind of smiley face. It's not quite the same, but it reminds me of it with this smoothness there and here. At least, I mean, it's definitely got more teeth. This one doesn't have as much teeth as they tend to. I guess is why it's kind of like anomalous looking. It's got this just like subtle dendrite. Subtle though, like it's all that's really there anymore. So cool. So cool. It could be like that, like filling in the region with water. Here, whereas over here, like water can like rest on this, but if it's over here, like if there's sand filling this, there's just sand in there, and we put water on top of this, it's gonna like pull on this segment if it's just like directly on it. But over here, it's gonna go through the sand and like enter into the aquifers below, like down into like Tarim Basin, which has a bunch of water underneath it. And like so there's a desert above but water below maybe, and like all these structures like that. But then over here, it's more like sturdy, like this segment, so it's able to support more dense. Water can't just like freely flow down into it as easily, and so it's able to support the water on the surface more readily to actually be able to form bodies of like seas. This one's pretty cool. I don't know what's going on. Lots of shapes. There's a square. This square is real interesting because it's got 4 little corners to it, and it's a circle inside. 4 little dots at the corners, though. This looks like Australia. Like to a point where it's almost like, could this have formed an Australian shaped segment on its surface because of like the tendencies of currents that like tend to create when like a single unit expands to a certain degree, it like causes Australia like shapes on it, maybe. And like maybe this is like Antarctica. I don't know. It's just pretty interesting that it is like actually seemingly had formed a shape of that nature. This one. Whoa. Whoa. Wonder if we got any of these like dendrite features anywhere. Like in a pronounced way. Maybe this. I don't know. It would be more so inward in these cases. Although it may be like extended upward and then inward, so it makes mountains. That actually kind of makes sense because they tend to be like where this segment is, it tends to be upward like this. Just even more like defined so as to literally be mountains. In the case of like a dendrite uplift, maybe, I don't know. See that little like oblong thing in there? Even multiple stacked. Another one where like the shape it's forming had specific preferential locations where the currents flowed. Kind of reminds me maybe of that. I don't know. I don't know. No, not really. Maybe this segment, maybe like over here. If anything, maybe over here, but cool, cool. That one's kind of interesting. I don't know what to make of it. Here's a good example of the current just right along the edge. Right along the edge. That's all it's doing. And then it gets like chunks out. But it still like hasn't fully severed it. I'll be right back. Okay. Okay. Is that... There's that supernova one where the particle separates in two halves. More of that. Let's go back to here as an angle, I guess, for the time being. This might be a good representation of the accretion of new continental shelf along the coastline of North America, where like there's mountains and this segment that's accreted. Let's see. Are there like teeth along it? Maybe. It's kind of teeth-like. Especially there. Unclear. Unclear. But it kind of has that... It's like a Pacific Ocean. Wonder if there's somewhere that looks kind of like this region too. Another of those dendritic features. Where the lobes are just like... It's almost like it bubbles from... Maybe it bubbles from the inside in some way to like separate it. Because essentially that is this. Where like the initial rock maybe was honestly like smaller, and it's just bringing a current of material into it that splits the initial rock and fills it. All over here it's really part of the rock, so maybe it's just spinning the rock's material itself without like adding much new material to it. Okay. This was quite the Shaligram pause. Might as well keep going though. I mean, I still got like 20 to go. So let's keep going pretty quick. This one's a pretty good one for that. Like, it depicts really well these features coming off of this like angled screw feature of the chakra, where it's like so wound up that it just like it begins to physically carve into the particle between the chakras and just take the material and just shoot it off in these like waves of material that then ride along the walls and collide and form these like features that are just time and again the same general structures because of like mechanics and physics and not in any. Here's one there, the supernova exploded and froze in this just chunk before it like reached the wall. So instead of being like this, the like dendritic thing, it's just this like blob flying through space that's just frozen, or some of it energetically is like reaching the wall and splashing out through it here, but really it's mostly just this blob here. I wish I had some money. I'd buy all of these. I would buy every Shaligram I could get. At least at least the ones that have pictures of. It would cost me like $5,000, I bet. Yep. I don't think they really sell. They would sell quickly when I get maybe some traction, but otherwise they're not really that. Here's like a flame. That's so crazy. One way or the other, it's propagating energy, probably outward in a flame from the inner vortex. Here's one where we can see like the particle has like part of it where it had the lines along it just kind of broken off, and beneath that segment is a more smoothened segment. And then again, the teeth, just the teeth though. This one. This one. Oh my god, this one. It even has a particle in it at its core that looks like it's like supernovaing. Bubbly. It's bubbly. Like, what? It comes over on top of itself. Wah! And just energetically spirals into some like, I don't even know I don't know how to explain this rock very well at all. Really, I don't even quite understand Shaligrams that well. Still, even though it's a huge step to recognize they're not fossils and to begin to explain them with physics and see them that way, it's still like barely. Like, this is what. Just like a spaceship. That's so cool. The cross section where we can just see This is not common to be able to see just a straight up clean break cross section of these where we can actually see. I can't even recall noticing this anywhere else. The basically the outer edge rind, like the boundary layer that formed between the like components, inner and outer parts, I guess, where the vortex is influencing it and where it's not, maybe has like an actual boundary form that's this gold type looking color, maybe. But I feel like the gold is highly related to like high energy, so I'm not sure why it's here. Unless this just in general had high energy, but it just, like, what? It really does not look like anyone did this, but maybe someone just cracked it open. Like, if it was just found like that. How crazy is this? It almost like snapped off. You can just break free from the host rock with enough of a vortex. Maybe that happened there. So cool. Is that one right there? Like, what? Again, though, I think these are in line. Let's see. That's hard to say. It's hard to say. I'd be just like, yeah, they're in line. That one doesn't look in line that well. It looks more like it goes over here, honestly. Maybe if it started energetically to turn more soon, for some reason, sooner. Crazy. Whoa. This is how currents move through the earth, like along weak points of polygons of pretty much a single unit, but where the materials were maybe different enough to have boundaries within it, just not that different where it's like noticeable, where we're like stepping between atoms kind of thing. Another one where it just has the screw shooting the material. Screw shooting the material. Screw shooting the material. Screw shooting the material. Crazy wound, like, but screw shooting the material. It looks like it, because in here there was no space for the material, it hadn't opened it. It just kind of bounced around. It just wound around it. Like, this is not a fossil. Like, what? There's so many of these that are like, guys, these aren't fossils. They're not fossils. They're not fossils. Another one shooting it off in just this, like, crazy gold looking stream. Okay. Okay, we already looked at that one. I think I must have two images of that one. I don't know. Because that one was, I could have sworn I went through that one already. More rounded, interestingly. Like, sometimes they come almost in circles. Like when this segment like this especially is just like a cross and it's not as defined. Like here it's more defined, but if it was just straight across. Okay, okay. Okay, we made it. So we saw several features on Shaligrams that are reminiscent of this. So strongly suggestive that this is correlated to a chakra, to this chakra here. Maybe not this one. Maybe there was a different one that has reformed in this position over time that was more associated with that. Maybe like here even. Starting like back here. Let's see. Does that make sense? Like starting maybe even here, like where this current kind of initially maybe ran up there. I don't know. Let's see. It's probably related to this current cutting across here. So it's probably along this line, like here and here. So it does kind of fit in there to this generally being like a Shaligrams feature from there. Where like maybe this is like part of it, but within it, it has a smaller Shaligram. But then over here, I'm not sure if there's anything at all. Usually there's enough features of both sides to at least probably be able to still detect it, I'd imagine, if it was like that. But maybe not. So I still didn't talk about this. I guess I'll have to wait another video because I just talked about Tarim Basin pretty much. And just generally pointing out that this is Shaligram-like. That this is Shaligram-like. We've already talked about before that this is Shaligram-like over here. Here, all sorts of places. If we go into here, I bet I can find it, is because it's so distinct. Within this region is this, like, this right here. I don't know, like a crown, maybe. And then through this region, down one of these side channels, I believe just before the snow on Google Maps. In here is the point of origin of all Shaligrams. Here it is. So we see a Shaligram here, a Shaligram here. This is probably part of a Shaligram. Honestly, this is probably all part of another Shaligram system over here. For sure, these systems here are part of Shaligrams structures. I mean, it's not even a question. This is interesting. I never noticed that. That looks like a Shaligram's edge, too. What the... I mean, not the way the whole of it is, but just that little stretch right there. Really, it was reminiscent of it. Right there. It may just be the way it looks, but... maybe it's revealing, though. There's some kind of process how Shaligrams form, because this is pretty much the best place to look for how Shaligrams form, because this is where they are. They're everywhere here. This is probably one right here. I wouldn't be surprised if this is part of one, based on that like unit right here. within the pretty center point in this like tooth looking thing. And it seems to come across here. Like maybe this is a Shaligram region. Like we can see like the two rows, almost like the side of a Shaligram, where we can just see the double mountains along the side when it begins to separate into two distinct top and bottom halves. So like there's all sorts of Shaligram features around the earth that are larger than Shaligrams themselves, like that one. I've seen them all over, not just around Shaligrams, because it's just a thing that happens. They're just the best representations, and this region is the best representation I've seen for various reasons. I mean, the Earth itself is a Shaligram, though, so it's not like they're like limited to this region. It's just they happen to have the most distinct representations of the way currents flow in that manner to really depict, like, capture the essence of those, like, things going on. Echoes of a Shaligram. I like it.